program right here on Dwayne's Coffee Break. As we continue to keep our fingers on the pulse of what's happening in the agricultural sector, I should say that's very important agricultural sector, we now turn the spotlight this week on the Fisheries Division of the Ministry, and in particular the upcoming annual Lobster Close season, which will start on April 1 and culminate on June 30 this year. Means no lobster, April 1 to June 30. Now, there are several new regulations governing the spiny lobsters, which will come into effect on April 1. And here to tell us about these regulations and more is Mr. Ian Jones, Senior Fisheries Officer. Good morning to you, Mr. Jones. How's the morning?
I'm not bad at all, Doreen. Thanks for having me.
Great. Now, why do we close the lobster season annually? Why do we have that?
Well, actually, it's actually a management tool, which is geared towards the protection of our lobsters during a vulnerable part of their life cycle, which is when they actually spawn and breed. Mm-hmm. So we actually have to protect the lobsters during this time.
Okay. And if we don't do that, we won't have any lobster, right?
Most definitely.
Now, what is the procedure involved in closing and regulating the industry?
Okay, we actually start with a press release where the general public is reminded. Fishers who are actually catching the fish, they are also reminded of the importance of the close season. We mobilize our extension services across the island. We have about 15 sub-offices that are operational. So we are kind of on the pulse with the fishers, just to ensure that they conform and they comply.
And if they don't?
Well, there are fines, there are sanctions. I'm sure this is what they don't like. And not only the fishers, but places like hotels and restaurants that have lobsters and wish to serve lobsters during the season.
Right. Now, if they have them in storage and they serve it during the season, it's okay?
No, actually, there are particular regulations. I mean, the one that comes into view right now is the 2009 regulations, which has a mandatory declaration of lobsters. Mm-hmm. Once you're going to, we're coming on to April 1 now. Mm-hmm. If you know you're going to have lobsters, you need to write, and it's really a declaration letter to the Director of Fisheries stating that you have these lobsters in storage, you have this certain quantity, and you describe them. Are they whole? Are they tails? Are they lobster meat? And this is subject to inspection by a fishery inspector that comes around just to verify. Yes, but that storage that you mentioned, Doreen, is something very particular because no lobsters are expected to be in storage by anyone after 21 days. So from April 1 to April 21, you actually can sell, you can process, you can export lobsters. But once you reach that April 22 date, only via a special permission that was granted by the minister in 2014 to a different regulation, you can actually apply for storage. You won't have access to it. It's actually stored away from you and under kind of bonded warehouse kind of mechanism where you can only access it with July 1st when the season reopens.
Okay, so if you have inspectors that go around and check from time to time?
Actually, yes, we do.
So somebody could go in a restaurant, just observe and see people serving lobster, then go and check and they have no permit or anything and then get in trouble.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the kind of surveillance that happens every now and then.
Indeed. Wow. Do we export lobsters?
Yes, we actually do. In 2014, it's actually a thriving industry. Our large industrial operators tend to do that. Our information in 2014 is reflecting values of lobsters to the amount of $7.5 million.
What? Wow.
So it is a lucrative industry, and that is why I say we actually need to protect lobsters during the close season.
Is exported to any of these very large restaurants in the U.S. that say lots of lobster to eat?
That's it, because, we're talking Red Lobster, and, there are marketing arrangements between some of our local operators.
Yes.
Right.
Wonderful. All right, Mr. Jones, let us reiterate again, because the closed season for lobster, April 1, which is just around the corner, and ends on June 30. Just remind us again of some of the new regulations governing the lobsters that will come into effect on April 1 to make sure everybody understands.
All right. First of all, there is no harvesting of lobsters. fishermen, they already know you cannot harvest lobsters during this period.
Okay.
There are two particular regulations for lobsters from 1976 that says if they are undersized, you cannot remove these lobsters from the water.
Okay.
Undersized actually means if you have a whole lobster, you measure from between the eyes to where the tail starts, what we call the carapace length. It should be 3 inches or more, or more than 7.62 centimeters. Also, there should be no buried lobsters. Buried lobsters actually mean female lobsters carrying eggs under their tail.
Okay.
So that should not be caught.
Okay.
The declaration, of course, you would need to do it now if you know that you are in a position of having lobsters during the season. And I mentioned there is a grace period from April 1 to 21, that's 3 weeks, where you can actually sell, process, and export. After that date, you can only have lobsters in storage by special permission, and that letter you would have to write by April 15th.
Okay. So if you don't have that letter and an inspector come and check you, you could be locked down?
That's it.
Oh, boy.
And face charges and prosecution before the court of law. Yes.
Wow. So better do the right thing and just wait. I mean, it's not a long close season. June 30 by the time it's just back at the, and then if you don't do that, you won't have the lobster, so you're defeating the purpose there. Mr. Ian Jones, thank you so much for being on this morning, and I will certainly hold off on the lobster until then, sir, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Speaking then to Mr. Ian Jones, Senior Fisheries Officer, and we're talking about the closed lobster season. Yes, and you love lobster, you want to be able to we have to observe April 1 to June 30 is the closed season, so you must not be fishing for lobsters whatsoever. So it is at Jamaica's waters are among the most overfished in the region, and we import a lot of the fish that we eat. The Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries is aiming to ensure that we produce more fish and other seafood from our own resources so that we can produce what we eat and eat what we produce. So let's all play our part by growing what we eat and eating what we grow. And don't forget to visit the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries website at www.moa.gov.jm for information on its many plans and programs.
Irish, cassava, pumpkin cassava, and yellow yam. It makes the